The good side of things. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a king who was fond of hunting. He had a chief minister who was a very wise and optimistic man. He was so optimistic about everything that it irritated the king. One day, the king and the minister went hunting in a dense forest in the outskirts of the kingdom. As they went on, they began to get hungry. The king said, "I'll have some coconuts for lunch," and cut a coconut from a tree with his sword. Suddenly, the sword slipped from the king's hand, and its sharp blade fell on his foot, cutting off a toe. The king screamed in pain and turned to his minister. To his shock, the minister laughed and said, "Oh, that's magnificent." The king was furious to hear this and said, "How can it be magnificent?" The minister replied, "Well, your majesty, everything happens for the best. We may not be able to see the good in it now, but we'll realize it in the future." The king was very angry. He pushed the minister into a dry well that was nearby and began hobbling back towards his palace. On his way, he was captured by a group of wild tribals who decided that he would be an excellent sacrifice to their god. The king was carried to the tribal priest to get him ready for the sacrifice. The king was very scared. To his good fortune, the tribal priest found that the king had a toe missing and said, "I'm sorry, we cannot use him for our sacrifice. We cannot offer anyone who is damaged to our gods." The tribal set the king free and went away. The king rushed back to the well where he had pushed his minister and pulled him out. Then, hugging the minister, he said, "I am very sorry, my dear friend. You are indeed wise." The king then told him of all that had happened. The minister smiled and said, "You don't have to apologize, your majesty. I'm lucky that you pushed me into that well. Thank you." The king was puzzled and said, "Why are you thanking me? I did you wrong." The minister laughed and said, "Oh no, your majesty, you saved my life. If you had not pushed me into the well, those tribals would have caught me and I would have been made the sacrifice." The king was taken aback by this truth and said, "You're right, my dear friend. You are truly wise. From now on, I'll always look at things from a positive point of view." The king and the minister then made their way home. When the queen saw them coming back, she went to them and asked, "Well, my dear king, were you able to catch any animal?" The king replied, "No, dear queen, I did not catch any animal, but I got something more valuable." "What is that?" asked the queen. The king smiled and said, "Wisdom."